Hello everyone, my name is Near, and with summer coming to an end soon and fall quickly approaching, I thought what better time than now to go over the top 15 horror games you should absolutely play in 2025. Horror games aren't just about jump scares, they're about atmosphere, tension, and the kind of fear that sticks with you long after the screen goes dark. Some are classics that define the genre, others are modern masterpieces you might have missed, but all of them left a mark on me, and I think they deserve a spot on your list. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's dive into some of the best horror experiences gaming has to offer. Coming in at number 15 is Haunting Ground, an overlooked PS2 survival horror gem that deserves way more love. You play as Fiona, a young woman trapped in a twisted castle after a car crash, being relentlessly stalked by grotesque enemies with disturbing intentions. You're not alone, though. Your only real defense is your loyal dog, Huey, who you can command to protect you or sniff out hidden paths. The game blends tension, vulnerability, and disturbing atmosphere in a way few titles manage, and it taps into real psychological horror without relying on cheap scares. It's rare, it's eerie, and in 2025, it absolutely still holds up. Number 14 is Visage, a brutally slow, deeply psychological horror experience that knows how to get under your skin. Set entirely within a haunted house, the game constantly shifts its layout and tone, unraveling the tragic backstories of the spirits trapped inside. It's a game that thrives on atmosphere, dim lighting, subtle audio cues, and tension that builds with every step. There's no combat, no gimmicks, just pure dread and the fear of what's waiting around the next corner. If you want a horror game that makes your heart race without a single jump scare, Visage delivers exactly that. At number 13, we've got Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly, a haunting classic that still holds its own decades later. You play as twin sisters trapped in a cursed village, surrounded by restless spirits. Your only weapon is an old camera that lets you fight ghosts by photographing them. The closer they get, the more damage you deal. It's a mechanic that forces you to face your fear, literally. The atmosphere is thick with tension, the story is tragic and mysterious, and the ghost designs are genuinely unsettling. For fans of slow burn, emotionally driven horror, Fatal Frame 2 remains one of the most unforgettable experiences you can play. Coming in at number 12 is Amnesia, The Dark Descent, a game that redefined psychological horror for a new generation. You wake up in a decaying castle with no memory, no weapons, and something terrifying stalking you in the dark. The fear here doesn't come from loud noises. It comes from the silence, the flickering of your lantern, and your sanity slipping away the longer you're in the shadows. It's immersive, claustrophobic, and forces you to run and hide rather than fight. Even years later, Amnesia remains one of the most effective and nerve-wracking horror games ever made. Number 11 is Rule of Rose, a haunting and deeply unsettling PS2 title that's become a cult classic for a reason. You play as Jennifer, a young woman trapped in a surreal world ruled by violent and manipulative children inside a twisted orphanage. The horror here isn't just in what you see, but in the psychological torment and cruel undertones woven into the story. With its grim fairy tale atmosphere and disturbing themes, Rule of Rose stands out as one of the most unique and daring horror games of its era, a forgotten gem that still lingers in players' minds. Number 10 is Alan Wake Remastered, a psychological horror thriller that plays like a twisted TV show come to life. You step into the shoes of a best-selling author whose nightmares start bleeding into reality in a quiet, fog-drenched town. With only a flashlight and a revolver, you fend off shadowy enemies while unraveling a mystery that feels equal parts Stephen King and Twin Peaks. The remastered version sharpens the visuals and atmosphere without losing the game's eerie charm. If you missed it the first time, this is the definitive way to experience one of the most stylish horror stories in gaming. At number 9 is Layers of Fear, a first-person psychological horror game that traps you in the mind of a deranged painter. As you explore a crumbling Victorian mansion, the world twists and reshapes around you, reflecting your descent into madness. There are no enemies, no combat, just you, your memories, and a gallery of haunting illusions. It's all about atmosphere, sound design, and deeply personal horror. With the recent remake tying together the original and its sequel, Layers of Fear is more polished, more surreal, and more terrifying than ever. It's horror as art, and it's unforgettable. Coming in at number 8 is Silent Hill 3, a disturbing and atmospheric journey that dives deep into psychological horror. You play as Heather Mason, a teenager drawn into the haunting town of Silent Hill, uncovering twisted truths about her past. The game is infamous for its grotesque creature design, suffocating soundscapes, and relentlessly dark tone. It's a direct sequel to the original Silent Hill and delivers one of the most unsettling experiences in the entire series. From bloody amusement parks to hellish hospitals, Silent Hill 3 doesn't just scare, it lingers. It's horror that crawls under your skin and stays there. At number 7 is Outlast, a relentless, nerve-shredding experience that throws you into the worst night of your life. You play as a journalist investigating a remote asylum, only to find yourself hunted by its deranged inhabitants with no weapons and nowhere safe to hide. Armed only with a camcorder and night vision, you're forced to run, hide, and pray they don't find you. The tension never lets up. Every breath feels stolen, every shadow hides a threat. Outlast doesn't just scare you, it exhausts you. It's survival horror at its most raw and unfiltered, and it still holds up incredibly well today. Number 6 is Dead Space Remake, a masterclass in sci-fi horror brought back with stunning polish. You play as Isaac Clarke, an engineer isolated aboard a deep space mining vessel where something has gone horribly wrong. The atmosphere is thick with dread, the sound design is unnerving, and the tension never lets up. The remake sharpens every detail, from lighting to pacing, while staying true to what made the original a horror classic. Whether it's your first time or a long overdue revisit, Dead Space is a terrifying journey that still hits hard in 2025. At number 5 is SOMA, a horror experience that trades cheap scares for something far more disturbing. Set in an underwater research facility after the end of the world, you wake up with no memory and quickly realize something's gone horribly wrong, not just in the world, but with your own identity. There are monsters, sure, but SOMA's real terror comes from its story, one that slowly pulls you into existential dread. It's chilling, emotional, and leaves you questioning what it means to be human. Few horror games stick with you like this one does. Taking the number 4 spot is Resident Evil 2 Remake, a near-perfect reimagining of a survival horror classic. It keeps everything that made the 1998 original iconic, but completely overhauls the visuals, controls, and pacing for a modern audience. Raccoon City feels alive and terrifying as you fight to survive with limited resources and constant tension around every corner. The level design is tight, the scares are earned, and the pacing never lets up. This is how a remake should be done. Respectful of the past, but bold enough to stand on its own. It's survival horror at its most refined. Coming in at number 3 is Alien Isolation, a masterclass in suspense and slow burn terror. Set 15 years after the original film, you play as Amanda Ripley, trapped on a decaying space station being hunted by a single, unstoppable alien. The creature isn't scripted, it learns and reacts, making every encounter unpredictable and terrifying. The game nails the 70s sci-fi aesthetic, and the sound design alone will keep you on edge. This isn't a game about fighting back, it's about surviving. Alien Isolation doesn't just pay tribute to the franchise, it elevates it and remains one of the tensest horror experiences ever made. At number 2 is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, the game that brought the franchise back to its horror roots in the most brutal way possible. Ditching the action-heavy style of previous entries, RE7 drops you into a decaying plantation in rural Louisiana, where something far worse than zombies is waiting. Played entirely in first person, the experience is intimate, immersive, and downright terrifying. From the grotesque Baker family to the slow, creeping dread that builds around every corner, RE7 is bold, focused, and relentless. It's the rawest Resident Evil has felt in years. And at number 1, it had to be Silent Hill 2 Remake, a return to one of the most iconic horror stories ever told. You play as James Sunderland, drawn to the fog-covered town of Silent Hill by a letter from his long-dead wife. What follows is a deeply emotional, psychologically disturbing journey that explores guilt, grief, and the monsters we carry inside. The remake brings modern visuals and controls while preserving the atmosphere, tone, and symbolism that made the original a masterpiece. This isn't just horror, it's storytelling at its most vulnerable. If there's one game that currently defines the genre in 2025, it's Silent Hill 2. And that wraps up my ranking of the top 15 horror games you need to play in 2025. Whether you're here for the psychological breakdowns, the jump scares, or just that creeping sense of dread, this list has a little something for every horror fan. But now I want to hear from you. Which games would have made your list? Did I miss a classic you love, or maybe rank one way too high? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading and replying to as many as I can. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more horror and survival content, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.